You'll hear a précis of Mike's life story with tributes from friends and family. And although there will be no hymns or prayers, there will be time for quiet reflection or silent prayer if you have religious beliefs. I hope our ceremony may help each of you to bid your own farewell to Mike and perhaps find some ease from the confused feelings that you may be experiencing and that it is in the nature of death to bring. Our thoughts today go out to Carol, Mike's wife and partner for 34 years, his daughter Alice and other family members. Carol would like me to thank everyone for coming today and for the invaluable support people have offered both her and Mike over the last few weeks, and also for all the cards of condolence, messages and tributes that have been paid to Mike. And instead of floral tributes, she suggested that you might like to make a charitable donation in memory of Mike, and she's chosen to support the Birmingham St Mary's Hospice, who provided care and support to him during his last days. There'll be a collection box as we leave, or you can send a donation direct. And after our ceremony, you're invited to join Carol, Alice and other family members and friends to continue celebrating Mike's life and sharing your memories of him over drinks and refreshments at the Chameleon Bar in Hill Street. This venue was chosen as it's very close to where Mike's DJ career began many years ago. There'll be live music and one of Mike's protégé DJs to keep you entertained, and photographic memories of him and his work. So we're here because a life has ended. Experiencing the death of someone close is a very personal matter, and we all cope with it in our own way, no one way being right or wrong. What we can do is support each other with understanding and love, and share the memories we have of Mike, acknowledge the contribution he made and the effect he had on you and other people around you. It's a fascinating aspect of human life that we're all unique, and Mike's individuality will have been shaped by the forces in his life. There is, and never will be, anyone else like him. All human relationships are unique, and Mike will have shared different aspects of himself with each one of you. Some of you will have known Mike all his life, all of your life, and some of you will have known him for just a few months or years, just a small part of his life. You all come from different places, but you have Mike in common. Today you're joining together in sharing the grief you feel for losing Mike, and you are supporting one another. Immortality lies in the influences that we've had on other people's behaviour and the impressions that remain in the minds of our friends, relatives and colleagues, often for years to come. We all contribute something, large or small, to our fellow human beings. And you will all have your own precious memories of Mike. The sociologist Norbert Elias explains how important those memories are when he says, "Death hides no secret, it opens no door. It's the end of a person. What survives is what he or she has given to other people, what stays in their memory." So keep hold of your memories of Mike, as they're very special. When I met Carol last week, she talked of Mike with love, pride, a lot of laughter and some tears. She and Mike had been together for 34 years, and on April the 1st this year their relationship was recognised by law with a quiet wedding ceremony in their front room. Let me tell you a little about memories of Mike's life from some of his friends and family, and later you'll hear from two close friends who've written tributes to him. Michael Hack Horseman was born in Chippenham on April the 13th, 1949. Mike was a one-off in every sense. He started out as an only child, but when he was 3, his divorced mother Jill met and married Jack Horseman, an RAF officer with 3 of his own sons. Jack had recently lost his wife following the birth of the youngest. So at a stroke, Mike acquired 3 stepbrothers and a stepfather. Within a short time, Mike's mother and his stepfather had a daughter, Susan, and a son, Andrew, making 6 children in all. This must have been somewhat confusing for Mike, the small boy who started out as an only child. With a father serving in the RAF shortly after the Second World War, the family spent many years moving from one place to another, from one country to another, spending time in Borneo, Malta, Germany, Singapore, as well as a variety of bases in the UK. After a few years, the oldest brother Martin was sent off to boarding school, and the second brother Mark went to live with a relative. This left Mike as the oldest of the remaining 4 children, and acting as big brother to the other 3. Mark, the older brother, said that he felt that this should have encouraged Mike's more responsible side, but knowing Mike, it might just have easily encouraged the opposite. Moving around the country, from country to country, from one culture to another, was a very exciting opportunity for Mike, and a good grounding for a nomadic or bohemian lifestyle. Mike's artistic talents were evident from a young age. He had an early interest in painting, and some of his creations decorated the family home. Like most teenagers, he obviously got a music bug, but with Mike it just kept on growing, rather like his record collection. As the years passed, the family began to spread out across the country, and after attending art college, Mike set up shop here in Birmingham, tapping into the art and music scene, and by all accounts adding to it in no small way. Initially, he acted as resident artist and art editor for Birmingham University's Mermaid magazine. He then moved into DJing, promoting and managing bands. Rick P. Jones, a friend of Mike and Carol's for over 35 years, said that his enduring memory of Mike will be of a warm, creative and very talented individual. Mike was an influential figure in the Birmingham music scene during the late 70s and 80s, a time when the scene was very dynamic and produced many very successful groups. Mike promoted exciting live music events at various venues throughout the city. Many will particularly remember the Holy City Zoo. Mike had a gift for finding new acts that were on the verge of making it big and booking them at just the right time. The role of a live music promoter can be very pressurised. It's a high-risk, competitive business. The demands of the venue owners, artists and audiences all have to be met. Mike had a gift for achieving this with integrity and style. There are a great many stories, but one that stuck in Rick's mind was when Mike booked an up-and-coming new group called Haircut 100 at Holy City Zoo. For once, Mike's instincts were wrong. The band hardly pulled in any punters. Mike probably made a loss that night, but he kept the faith. He paid the band their fee and booked the group for a return performance. How things change. Haircut 100 broke through with a smash hit called My Favourite Shirt. Even though they'd now hit the big time, the band respected Mike for what he'd done for them and the agreement that they'd had with him, and they did not want to renegotiate it anyway. They returned to perform at Holy City Zoo a second time, and it was a sellout. Mike probably didn't make a loss that night. There were a great many shows that Mike promoted: ABC at Holy City Zoo, Spandau Ballet at the Botanical Gardens, and the brilliant Steel Pulse in Cannon Hill Park, to name but a few. Mike's innovative work promoting live music enriched the Birmingham music scene and helped to launch many successful music careers. Mike also encouraged music and creativity at a grassroots level. Many aspiring young musicians and their bands would seek Mike's opinion on their latest songs and demos. Mike would always say it as it was, encouraging when praise was due and constructively criticising when improvement could be made. His advice was greatly valued. He had a vast knowledge of music. Mike thrived in his career as a DJ. He was never afraid to play all types of music within his sets, which he put together well. In his carefully constructed sets, he performed at many iconic venues, a few of which no longer exist. Places such as Golden Eagle, Barbarella's, Holy City Zoo, Powerhouse, and more recently, the Hare and Hounds in King's Heath. As he devoted his skills as a DJ, advertising and promoting, he encouraged new blood, offering advice, mentoring and giving opportunities to young people he thought had potential. And one of those people was Salvatore Bullen, who sent the following tribute to Carol. He said, "Mike has been the major influence, mentor and confidant in my life since the sixth form at Moseley Art School. He gave Zena and I the first chance to DJ and do the artworks as punks at Killing Time at the Shoot in Hill Street. It was his style and technique that I went on to use for the posters that I did for Fashion, Duran, the Human League and Japan. It was Mike that introduced me to the Alex Harvey Band at Barbarella's and photographed me with Marvin Gaye at Rebecca's Cindy. Mike has either DJ'd or photographed virtually all the important events in my life. He collected my paintings and always encouraged me to keep on living it large, always keen to hear of any exploits, especially of a sexual nature. I love him from the top of my hat to the bottom of my socks." And Mike's friend Nigel Wright remembers that he was just 19 when he started working at the zoo, and said that it was a fantastic place to be in the 1980s for many people. He said that Mike was the pivot around which everything else revolved. And he remembers some of the bands that passed through the club either as artists, performers, or just as guests who came down to party. People like Soft Cell, the Eurythmics, Duran Duran, Fashion, Boy George and Martin Degler, Stephen Duffy, ABC, Midge-Ure, Blancmange, Flock of Seagulls, Talk Talk, Wang Chang, the list goes on. He remembers how one night 50 of the West Midlands Police's finest decided to surprise the club with a visit. He was overwhelmed with acute anxiety, but Mike stood calmly behind the decks, playing Heaven 17's "We Don't Need This Fascist Groove" thing, right up until the club was. American artists who played elsewhere in Birmingham always came to the zoo when Mike was there to party after their shows, and it wasn't unusual to find the 3 Degrees or the Drifters hanging out. Mike was at the core of the scene. He was the mercurial spark that made things happen, and he remained so for over 30 years. As recently as March of this year, Mike was telling Nigel about his plans for an event that he was planning. Nigel said he wasn't just a part of the scene, he made the scene. He was the scene. He booked the bands, designed the posters and flyers, he created the vibe, he played the records and cracked the jokes, and then provided everyone with the perfect after party at Yew Tree Road. Mike was the man. And despite Nigel regularly raiding his huge and diverse record collection at the club, often failing to put the records back in their correct sleeves, a DJ's nightmare, Mike never got angry, never judged, and that lack of judgment made everything and anything possible. There was always such a diverse group. Anybody was welcome, as long as they had the right mentality. And divisions like age, sexuality, gender and race, none of these things mattered or even registered. Mike enabled people. He allowed and encouraged people to discover and be whoever they wanted to be. And many people will be eternally grateful for that. Another of Mike's gifts was artwork. The posters he designed to promote events were cutting edge. And then there was Mike's photography. Frustrated with existing photos of bands that he managed, Mike decided to hone his skills as a photographer and segued from DJing to photography. He worked with models, bands and artists of all descriptions. Steve Gibbons, Robert Plant and the burgeoning Asian music scene. He continued to connect artists, even provided extras for and made a cameo appearance in a Mick Jagger video. His photographs explored subculture and style and are a very valuable legacy. Mike's flippant description of his work was, birds, babies and bands. In fact, photography for him meant so much more than that. Wherever Mike was, so was his camera, observing, documenting, capturing the moment. Witty, erotic, perceptive, his handmade Christmas cards became collectibles. If you were fortunate enough to receive one of these limited edition masterpieces, I'm told that the first task was to interpret it. The second was to keep it away from children who wouldn't understand it, and elderly aunts who would. Karen Stevens, another friend, said that Mike saw potential shots in everything and everyone. His ability to show people as how they wanted to be seen was one of the many creative gifts he was blessed with, which he honed to perfection without imitation. Beauty and the idea of perfection is subtle and personal, something many of his friends and models will miss. Mike had this unique ability to capture the unseeable and was, as with his life, ahead of his time. Karen said that his work was as good as, if not superior, to some of the most esteemed famous photographers. His preference was to steer away from commercialism and capitalism, thus not allowing and not letting others dictate his creative genius.